And what I realized is as a leader over time, everybody is not me. And that's really frustrating. And so, I guess there's another side of that coin where everybody could be me. And that would also be very frustrating because I'm
That would
super
be your
stubborn.
nightmare in
Yeah,
reality.
probably. Yeah. Yeah. But
Imagine the
yeah,
size of
like,
that boardroom table,
oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many fights would happen. But yeah, like you finally realize as a leader, everybody is not you, and so everybody needs different things. And so one of the things that I've heard in my past is, as a leader, you have to be the chameleon. And what that means is you have to blend into everybody else and what they need, right? Like you can't lead everybody like you. You've got to go to this person and they need a specific way of leading, and you got to bend to that, right? And this person needs something different, and this person needs something different than that, different than that.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Building Scale, specifically the Building Connection series, where I get to talk to awesome people I meet here in the wild and here in the valley, and or anywhere I kind of stumble myself into. But this week, Zach Cohen is definitely a valley guy. Not a valley guy, but the valley, as in the Arizona Phoenix Valley. He runs a little company called Intersection Development, or is a co-founder of it. And they're doing something really, really cool here in the valley, which is the Atari Hotel, which we talk ad nauseum about, as well as like, how do you, as a developer, think of these awesome ideas, find partnerships and things like that, and maybe a peek into the box, as me and Zach and a couple other developers are going to have a little panel at the National Construction Board of Influence AEC Development Day in a couple months here, less than 50 days. Exciting times, absolutely. But yeah, Zach is my buddy. I enjoy Zach a ton. He's fun. He speaks his mind, which I love. And I think you're going to really enjoy this episode as well. Also, he's a 2-time Building Scale, Building Connections person. So he's practically royalty around here. So yes, sit back, relax, enjoy the fun banterings of me and Zach Cohen.
Today's guests are Ryan Stephens and Brandon Woodside from TXD Family of Brands, headquartered in Hurst. TXD Family of Brands includes Texas Direct Roofing and Construction, TXD Pools and Patios, and TXD Commercial, and serves homeowners and businesses across the Dallas-Fort Worth market. Ryan has served as the Director of Marketing since 2022. He's led lean, high-impact marketing campaigns that are helping reshape how roofing and home service companies connect with homeowners. Ryan is passionate about authentic storytelling and is highlighting how great contractors truly serve customers while avoiding common industry pitfalls. While Brandon is the COO, Chief Operating Officer of Texas Direct Roofing and Construction, he played a key role in scaling the company from about $5 million over $20 million in revenue in just a few years. With a background in consulting, Brandon focuses on building high-performing teams, scalable systems, and strong culture in blue-collar industries. TXD's mission is rooted in integrity, craftsmanship, and creating trusted spaces. And with all that said, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Excited to be
Justin.
here.
Thank you.
Yes, I when we first met, Ryan, me and you met first, and you're like 3 companies and all this kind of stuff, and I was like, what's going on here? And you gave maybe a better explanation than I did. But give us a little bit of your background, both of you, and then about TXD.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go first. So my background, actually kind of a wandering path. Was a history major in college, and so graduated and had no job. Started in
that's what a history major does. My sister's also a history major and has not used that yet.
That's right. I think it's one of those things where you think in college you're either going to be a professor or you're going to go to law school, and often neither of those things happens, and probably for the best. So for me, and we'll get into this later, but it was just something I was passionate about, so I picked it at the moment. And graduated, didn't have a job, newly married, so started in nonprofit work. It was right after the financial crisis, and that's pretty much all the organizations that were hiring were fundraisers because they needed money too. So learned how to speak and how to, tell stories during fundraising. And then through some connections here in Fort Worth, got into marketing. From marketing, got invited to come and learn the mortgage industry under a pretty successful loan officer in town, a super sweet lady who's since passed away, but really missed the marketing side of things. So all the way through mortgage, I would do little consulting jobs on the side. And then, one day just had a fateful conversation with the owners of TXD, Texas Direct, and ended up my path turned here to come take over the marketing when the companies were much, much smaller. So that's kind of my backstory.
And you, Brandon?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say the guy that you talked about in the intro, he sounds amazing, way
He
better
does,
than
doesn't
me.
he?
But so maybe I
Well,
could
that's
be
because
that
you
guy
have a
one
really
day.
good storyteller in Ryan. So that's how
Yeah,
it works.
that's true. That's true. For me, yeah, I've got a very eclectic past. Started as a high school football coach and teacher. Then I was a pastor for 10 years and developed teams and grew the organization there and found that I love growing organizations and being able to, lead people that way. And then I got into a little bit of construction sales and then I went into business consulting. For me, at the end of the day, like I have a coach's heart and I love coaching people no matter what we're talking about. So I did that and really loved it. And, I had the opportunity to work with Texas Direct as a consultant before I came on staff here. And just through lunches ever since past that point, we met again and they said, "Hey, we would love to hire somebody like you. What is it? What would that look like?" And I'm like, "Let's just do it." So that's kind of where it all came to.
That's like the Alex Hermosi play. Hey, do you know anybody that's just like you that needs my
Yeah,
services? Because that would
that's
be great.
exactly what it was. But I don't think they knew that at the time.
That's awesome. Cool. So, what's with the three brands? Why broken up? Why did they all start at the same time, different times? What's that look like?
You want me to take this, Brandon?
Sure, go for it.
All right, cool. So when I came to TXD, it was about 12 or 15 people. We were one company who did many different things, from residential roofing to remodels to pools and patios, which is actually how I met the owners of the company. They built a custom patio for me when I was doing mortgage full time. And then we were also doing commercial roofing. And then it's really been kind of a journey of finding the right people and growing each business line to the point where it needed I don't know what you would call it, but sort of I guess, like, credibility of being its own brand. And so, especially with commercial roofing, which is B2B, and you're often trying to win bids on really big contracts or general contractors, they really needed to have the credibility of having their own website, their own brand, their own logos, their own story, their own team. And then pools and patios came after that, just as a result of the sheer volume of that business we were doing, it needing its own team, its own marketing. And so it just kind of grew out of the need to recognize that these businesses had grown to a point where they were no longer just a roofing company doing those things. They were now their own unique team doing those things in their own unique way. And so we still want clients to know we do all of them, but each team deserves its own silo.
That makes
Well said.
sense. Yeah. Putting, we see this where it's like, hey, like this team just does this function. That's important because you don't want them doing everything, because then it waters down the quality essentially across the board. So you doing that into the brand component of it, like, hey, like this is just roofing. That's all this team does. Makes tons of sense.
Yeah.
Well, the great thing about it is they all come together too, right? Like that's really intentional for us as well. We have staff meetings on the first of every month and everybody's included in that, right? Like every company is all together in one meeting. And they each get to kind of give their updates on a monthly basis of what's going on in their team and what they're doing and how successful they are or whatever. Because, you might get points where, roofing sales reps, have clients that they sold a roof to and they did a great job. And so the customer wants a patio. So that transition has to be handed off to the patio team well. And so they need to have a relationship to be able to do that well, right? And the processes and the systems to be able to make sure that actually logistically can happen with all the information included, right? And so like we work really hard to make sure, yes, they are three different entities, but they're also TXD umbrella brands as one, working together simultaneously.
That's cool. That's smart. One hands off to the next, right? How do you the next thing? Because once you build a roof, it's going to be a bit until you get another roof, right? I mean, that's essentially how that goes. So if you can push that into just a whole different business line, or in this case, a different brand, that makes tons of sense. So it's been a lot of growth since you both have been there. At least that's what the intro said. Somebody said that out loud, and
Somebody
that's what
said
it
that.
is. So what does that actually look like? When you started, how big, and then where you projected today?
Yeah, I think, when I got here, I think we were, Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think we were like a $5 million company, something like that. We had 5 or so reps on board and, the two business owners, they were working their rears off to, do half the revenue for the company and try to grow it at the same time. And so coming on board and, helping them put some systems and processes in place and coming up with core values and all that kind of stuff. Like we've worked really hard through culture and hiring and onboarding and training and all the systems. So being able to get that to, I think we're going to be around 30 million somewhere this year.
That's awesome. That's awesome growth. So you come in, you put some systems in place. When do the owners not remove themselves, but are no longer half of the revenue stream for the company?
Yeah, it's a funny story because like when I first came in, I don't. It was definitely the first 3 months. That was one of the first things we talked about. I'm like, guys, you've got to stop selling. um and for them, and they'll even tell you, like, they're like, no way that's happening. And I'm like, okay, well, like, here, that's okay, but you just are going to grow to where you want it to grow, right? And so, just like every person has to grow in their role and evolve in their role, like they had to come, to the understanding of like, hey, look, we can't get to where we need to go if I'm going to continue to sell half the revenue for the company, right? I've got to take time off and I've got to be able to work on the company rather than in it, right? And so we actually I made them read Michael Gerber's, the E-Myth. And so as we read through that, and they started to realize, hey, maybe this guy is saying the right things. And so yeah, so they worked, and one of the things they said to me was like, I can't stop selling out the revenue until you get people in here who can replace that revenue. And I'm like, fair point. And so, then I went to work and the team went to work really hard on hiring more guys and training more guys and getting that. And so we got to finally get to the point where I mean, it was not super long. It was pretty quick to where they were able to step out, and I would say within that year they were able to step out and not do half the revenue. I mean, they still sell stuff because things just, when you've been a business owner for that long a time and work with that many customers, like it just naturally comes to you, right? And so they still sell the bigger stuff every once in a while and work with homeowners, but I would say from the day to day, like they're pretty out of the sales game.
So one thing I want to ask, because you've unbottlenecked the owners, but that means that from a sales perspective, you need to be highly motivated. You need to either hire highly motivated people or you need to essentially highly motivate them. What is this? Do you have structure around how to motivate salespeople?
Yeah, I think the answer to that is both, right? You said two things, and both has to happen. One is we have to hire highly motivated people, right? And I tell guys when I interview, I'm like, I'm not your dad. I'm not going to be calling you and making sure you're coming to work and all that kind of stuff, right? Like you're a grown freaking man, and you need to, come to work and do what you need to do, right? And so we have to hire highly motivated people to do that. And everybody that we hire, it's tough to tell whether they're highly motivated from an interview or not, right? But you can ask some questions and all that kind of stuff and get some history responses. But, our goal is to hire super highly motivated people. But the other thing you talked about was motivating people. And I've thought about this a lot, like, can I be candid real quick?
Of
Like
course.
me as a very self-motivated guy, I struggle with like having to motivate grown men to go do their job every day, and so like, I'm like, dude, like I'm going to get up every single day and I'm going to go give you 100% whether I'm incentivized or not. Right. Because that's just who I am. And I'm going to go, I'm either all in or I'm all out. I'm not like a 50% guy. And so you're going to get all of me. And so as a younger leader, I really struggle with like, why do I have to incentivize you to do your job? Like I hired you to do a job. I'm paying you to do a job. Just go do your job. Right. And what I realized is as a leader over time, everybody is not me. And that's really frustrating. And so, I guess there's another side of that coin where everybody could be me. And that would also be very frustrating because I'm
That would
super
be your
stubborn.
nightmare in
Yeah,
reality.
probably. Yeah. Yeah. But
Imagine the
yeah,
size of
like,
that boardroom table,
oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so many fights would happen. But yeah, like you finally realized as a leader, everybody is not you, and so everybody needs different things. And so one of the things that I've heard in my past is, as a leader, you have to be the chameleon. And what that means is you have to blend into everybody else and what they need, right? Like you can't lead everybody like you. You've got to go to this person and they need a specific way of leading, and you got to bend to that, right? And this person needs something different, and this person needs something different than that, different than that. And so you kind of have to meet people where they're at and to be able to lead them well and figure out what makes them tick and what motivates them and all that kind of stuff. And so it's different for every single person, but I finally realized that as a leader, that's the way to lead well. And so that's what I try to do with our team every single day. And I think, there's two different ways to motivate. There's public motivation, right? And I was one of our new guys that we just hired. He's kind of really stepping up as a leader, previous military guy. And he's been very vocal lately, publicly, about like holding people accountable, right? And not just people individually, but like the team, right? Whether it's door knocks or whether it's inspections, we're not doing enough, right? And he's been very vocal publicly. And, I just had to pull him aside and I'm like, hey, man, that's really good. I'm so fired up that you're excited and you're wanting to hold people accountable, because the best kind of pressure is peer pressure, right? And I can tell you all day long, but if you got a person who's the same level as you telling you, then that's way better. And so it's kind of like a football coach, right? Like I want somebody, a leader on the team who's going to hold the team accountable. So he's publicly telling everybody we got to do better. We need to step it up, right? So I pulled him in privately and said, hey, man, I'm really glad you're doing that. That is necessary. But if you also want to make a real impact, pull people aside privately, right? And go, hey, you are better than this, right? You have so much more potential to do way more. Like, I would love to help you get to where you want to go and be that. So I think there's public motivation, right? And there's also that private motivation where you pull somebody aside and have kind of that mentor coaching moment. And that's really what changes people. And because they know that way they know you care, right? And they don't just see the public display of, we need to do better. Does that make sense?
Oh,
I mean,
It does.
we do the normal sales stuff, right? We do the yearly incentives and the monthly incentives and all that kind of stuff. But like, I think from a needle moving standpoint, that's kind of what you're more talking about as far as motivation goes. Like we do the speeches and the sales meetings and all that kind of stuff. But what I try to do is I try to pull guys aside privately, and guys who have high potential but aren't meeting that potential. And I pull them in, or I take them out to lunch, and I go, I just did this a couple weeks ago for one of our young guys, 21 years old or 20 years old. And I just had a dad moment with them. And I'm like, hey, man, dude, you've got so much potential. You're coming in and you already are selling roofs, because this guy's like, he sells 2 roofs, takes off a month, sells 2 roofs, takes off a month because he lives with parents and doesn't have any bills, right? So he's not really super motivated to make $1 bajillion. And so I'm like, hey, buddy, you've got an opportunity here that you don't want to squander. Right? Like you have an opportunity to set yourself up financially for the rest of your life. You could bank 3, 4, 500K in your bank, go buy a house in cash and never pay a mortgage, right? Like you have an opportunity to set yourself up right now while you have no kids, no wife, right? And you can do that. And so, just having those kind of moments with those guys that you have to recognize and pull them aside and push them a little bit and challenge them.
What's super interesting is you just said you had to have that dad conversation, but you said you didn't want to be anybody's dad. So look at you stretching your leadership abilities across the board.
If you're not learning, you're not growing.
That's right.
I want to add
ahead.
one thing to that Brandon said, and it goes along with being a dad. But one of the things that is true about TXD that's maybe not true at other companies is Brandon used the word that you care for that person. You really care for them. And I'm not going to go into some super cheesy diatribe about like we're a family and corporate loves you, and like that's not how it is here. It is genuinely a group of people who actually care about the human beings that show up to work every day, and that starts at the top with Jeremy and Matt, and it goes all the way down to the team leads that manage the sales guys in the field. And like even in marketing, I love when those guys win. Just this week, about a year and a half ago, one of our young guys left another roofing company to come work for us, and his employer got petty and left a super nasty review for him on our business and accused him of some really sketchy personal stuff having to do with men and women. And it wasn't true at all. And it was just a smear because they were mad that he came here. And I have been fighting with Google to get that review taken down for more than a year. And just this week, that review came down. I finally got it down. And just like one of those things where like the very first thing I did before I even texted the owners or anybody else is I texted a screenshot to that guy. I was like, bud, I got you. And he was so excited. He was like, let's go. Like, it's that thing where like we genuinely care for what's best for the people on this team. And whether reps stay or go, I routinely hear from them when they're talking to me that they love TXD because we care about them. It's not just about squeezing them for revenue. Sometimes that's to a fault and they take advantage of that. But most of the time that ends up being a really good thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's always the fear. Oh, if I'm too kind or I'm too caring, I'm going to get taken advantage of. But certainly that's old school thinking happened all the time, where it's like, I can't give an inch because they'll take a mile kind of a thing. So in your perspective, though, caring is to your benefit, overarching.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I would much rather lean that way and get burned every once in a while than lean the other way and then never, and not care about people, right? Like that's just not how you grow an organization. And we hear all the time, like, you should be a family and our work is a family. That's not true. We are not their family, right? Like their family is their family. And I think when you get that healthy perspective of that, because when I think when businesses say that we're a family, I think they use that as a way to be able to help people and take it to where it's like, we're your number one, right? You need to always think about us. You need to always be on the clock. You need to always think about us more importantly, right? And that's just, people don't want that, right? They actually have a real family that they need to go support. And so, like we have, I think, a healthy perspective of we are not your family, but we definitely care for you, right? This is a job and I understand that, but we're going to care for you while you're here. And we also understand you've got a family to take care of.
Yeah, that's, usually when people say the family, I always give the example. I'm like, yeah, but you can't like fire Uncle Ralph from Thanksgiving. Like that's not a thing you can do because otherwise it would be chaos in your family across the board. But like if Ralph, the sales guy, is just like doesn't care and like isn't doing his job, it's like, yeah, well, we're going to have to part ways just simply because, hey, we care and we want you to succeed. But like if you're going to just, not do what you're supposed to be doing, then we have to figure out another solution.
Yeah. I mean, there have been guys that we literally have had here that I truly loved and they just didn't work out here. Like they just couldn't figure it out. And I've literally helped them get other jobs through my network. Right. And like, that's how much we care about our guys and our team. And like we say, we would be super naive to think that you're going to be a TXD for the rest of your life. Right. And so whether you're here forever or whether you're not, we want to be able to make an impact in your life so great that you'll always remember and you'll be better moving forward because of you came to TXD.
So I think this is a good segue for defining success.
I meant to do that, Will.
Well, being the COO, you got to be the puppet master for everything, right? I think it's a good segue to talk about success. And what does that look like? Can you define what success looks like?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like a successful business is one that, I think superficially, a successful business is one that makes a lot of money and grows, right? I think everybody would define a successful business that way. But, for us at TXD, it's a little bit different, right? Success is, I not only want to grow and be successful as a company, but I want everybody who is involved at TXD to do the same. Right. I want them to grow and be successful as well. And whether that's with the company or whether that's outside of the company, whether that's as a dad, a husband, a person, whatever it is, right? And kind of what I was talking about a second ago, like we want to make an impact in our people beyond just work. Right. And so for me, like, yes, we want to grow. We want to impact people. That's something that Jeremy and Matt are really good at talking about is, as we grow, you grow. And we want to help everybody have an opportunity to be successful in life and that's one of the things that I love about 1099, 100% commission positions is that I was just telling an interview guy today is that you can make as much money as you want. You can literally change the course of your life by this job if you want it. Right. And that's not true of every job. You go get a job for a $60,000 salary and that's all you're going to make is $60,000. And you might have to wait a couple of years for a promotion, but here you can year one come in and do as much as you want to do based off your work ethic and be super successful and change the trajectory of your life, your kids' life, your grandkids' life, And so that's one of the things that I love about this job is not just taking TXD where it needs to go and be successful, but it's helping the people that help TXD be successful, right? And change their lives.
Do you have any stories about that? Like, because you talked about, changing lives. Has that actually happened?
Oh, you got to tell Ron.
Ryan, why don't you take that one, Ryan?
You want me to take it? Okay.
Yeah.
So this guy's a really good friend of mine. When Brandon first came on, Brandon hired this guy who had just moved here. And I don't think he'll care if I share his name. His name is Ron. And Ron came here from California. He was one of the refugees who felt like he was just going backwards there. The cost of living was going up and his living wasn't, and he was struggling. And he's a dad and a husband, and he has high school age kids. And so he reached a crisis point. He moved to Texas and he had no plan. He just knew he wanted to come here because there was opportunity. So right there, you've got the perfect picture of somebody who can be successful in a construction role, right? Somebody who just, I'm willing to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. I'll work hard. But he just was put in the wrong place. He started driving Uber Eats and DoorDash like a lot of people do, gig economy stuff in Dallas, Fort Worth. And so he did both this and that job for around 6 months, I think, Brandon, if that's right. And he just wasn't getting anywhere. It was clear from the very beginning he has a magnetic personality people are just attracted to him. He's just a big teddy bear, and he's so happy and friendly all the time. And it just was like, what is happening? Why is this guy not being successful? So the managing partner over our commercial roofing business sat down with him one day, who's just this guy that he's this giant motivational personality, big voice in the office, and loves to challenge people one-on-one. And he sat down with Ron one day and he's just like, what are you doing? You know, like, what is going on? Like and he gave Ron this famous speech in the office. We call it the burn the ships. And so he just told Ron, he's like, all these other ships you're leaving on the beach to help save you and bail you out, you've got to burn them. They're not helping you survive. They're drowning you and keeping you from the success that you deserve. That speech happened in February of 2024. Is that correct, Brandon? So that speech happened, and Ron heard it, and he really internalized it. And you saw the change immediately. He would spend sun up to sundown out in the neighborhoods introducing himself to homeowners, and especially when this big hailstorm that I swear the Lord sent to help Ron hit this town in Texas called Prosper. And Ron got into this one community in Prosper, and he made himself famous in this community. And he built a fan club, and every one of those homeowners were giving him to all the other homeowners in that area. And it started to snowball, and he started to see it. From February to June of 2024, Ron sold $1 million in residential roofing.
Holy
and in the same amount of time that it had taken him to do basically nothing the 6 months before. And my favorite part of this story is, at the time we had this incentive that if you sold $1 million, you got a company truck. We bought you an F-150, we wrapped it, and all you had to do was pay the car insurance. We paid for the truck. Ron's story, my favorite part of it, is that he came from California basically with a mattress and got an apartment. And he didn't even have a working vehicle. He got involved in a local church, and the people in that church were lending him vehicles on a weekly basis. And he would show up at the office week to week with different vehicles. My favorite was he showed up in this giant, like, dually pickup one time, and he's this little, like, 5'2" guy. Like, it's just crazy. You know, most of the vehicles had no air conditioning, and it's the summer in Texas. You know, just
Looked like a 9-year-old driving a giant dually truck.
yeah. So we have this moment. I got to film it. It's this amazing, just special time where one of our owners was like, hey, can you go help me get a big ladder out of the back of this truck in the bay? And so Ron goes out there, and the owners, walks him to the truck, and there's no ladder in the truck. And Ron looks confused, and Matt goes, I think what I meant to say was, go get your ladder and put it in this truck. This is your truck. And everybody in the office comes out of hiding, and Ron's giving hugs, and he's crying, and we're all crying. And it's just this moment, like, we're not his wife. We're not his kids. We're not his family. But in that moment, we showed that we deeply cared about them and about him. We celebrated his success, but he earned that success. Like, he had to go knock those doors, and he had to meet those homeowners. He had to leverage those builds and those relationships, manage those projects, make sure that they went well. Every step of the way, it was him, and we were supporting him, but he built his success. I mean, he did 100% of it and deserves the credit. And it was so fun, to watch it and to share in it. Like, that's what we love, is things like that.
Yeah, and I think that first year he made like 190 grand or something like that.
Well, that's a turnaround right there. Jesus.
Yeah, he's
that's
our
awesome.
second highest sales guy that year, I think. Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Well, congrats, Rob, for being awesome.
Yeah, he
Shout
is
out to
awesome.
you.
Yeah.
Burn the ships conversation turned into essentially an awesome story. So you're saying you've used the burn the ships conversation, or sorry, I can't remember his name, but had used the burn the ships conversation on more than one occasion. So this is like a famous speech now that is used around the office.
Yeah, I mean, it's, some guys, like, it's a 100% commission job, right? And so some guys are naturally scared to make jump ship, and go like, I'm all in with 100% commission. And so they try to keep these like little jobs on the side. And every once in a while, we'll have to pull that thing out. And it's really for the guys that are like, hey, like, they got a lot of potential. They're doing a good job. They just don't have enough time to do what they need to do to really pass that wall to be successful and be comfortable in this role. And so you have to have that conversation every once in a while and go, hey man, you need to stop what you're doing over there and focus over here.
Well,
I've got another story of that too with
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
Well, and I was going to say, but before you dive into that, I was going to say Brandon even recently used this. We had a guy that wanted to come here from another roofing company, but he was making crappy commissions over there. And it was so obvious to Brandon and the hiring team that's like, this guy's making bank if he comes here instead of, and the only difference is his commission, like what he makes there and here. And Brandon, you had that with that guy. You had the burn the ships conversation with him of like, you need to walk away from where you're at. You need to trust us that, and he's come over since and made way more money than he would have over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not just within the team, but even people we're hiring, you know?
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, Will, we have that conversation a lot, actually. But yeah. Yeah.
You got to get a plaque and put it on the walls.
We need to replace the trees behind you with a like burning ship photo.
That's right.
Ooh,
That's
that
right.
would be awesome.
Oh, I like
I
that.
want a burning ship photo behind me.
No, those are the walking trees, man. You can't do that's the vision of 2023 right there, buddy.
Okay, so let's hear the story of Michael.
All right. So Michael was a guy who was an insurance agent, came to us, he was an older guy and a really likable guy, really, works hard. And he was trying to do kind of both. And I'm going to be honest, I think the first year he was here, the first whole year, I'm going to be honest, I think he only saw one roof. And like he was trying to do both things. And, we were, talking about like, hey, man, this may not be the right, path for you, buddy. And so this past year, we just, in fact, I'm going to give Vanessa credit. Like Vanessa actually had the burn the ships conversation with him. And he was like, yeah, I'm all in. And I'm going to forgo my insurance company stuff. And I'm going to go all in with TXD. And I think right now he's our fourth highest seller of our sales team. And so like, you just, those guys that and I get it, man. Like it's 100% commission when you've got a family and all that kind of stuff that's depending on you. It's hard to totally trust yourself and, your ability when you don't know if this is, the best thing for you and to just cut everything off behind you. And that's really what this picture right here above me is all about. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the walking palms in South America, but that's what those trees are. And what happens is every year, but the canopy of the Amazon, like they can't get sunlight. And so what they do is they grow new roots towards the sunlight and they make the old roots behind them die and they literally can move.
Wow.
These trees and they can actually move. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it's like 20 yards a year they can move.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
That's a
And
ton.
so when I first came into TXD, or my first year, I literally, I was laying in bed one night and me and my wife were watching TV and I saw a commercial with the walking palms. And I was like, holy crap, that's our vision for this year. And so that's what it
Way
was.
to go,
like
marketing.
Nope.
So we
Commercials.
talked about, like, I pitched it to Matt and Jeremy and I'm like, hey guys, here's our vision, man. Like we need to let some old things, old habits, old ways of doing things die behind us. And we need to grow new roots somewhere else that's going to be successful for us. And that's what we did. Our first vision ever at my first year at TXD was the walking palm vision.
Which came from a commercial from a marketing department somewhere.
It's true. So whoever that
I
was,
love
great job.
the combination of you two.
Oh, there's lots of banter here.
The balance and banter is awesome.
So, Ryan, since we'll talk about marketing here for a second, did marketing exist before you walked in the door?
Yes, it did. What's funny is like both of our owners, they tell you they don't like marketing. Like one of them says it more adamantly. The other, he's like, I hate marketing. I don't even want to think about it. That's why we hired you. I've heard that so many times. That's why I've hired you. I hired you to think about that. Like, just give me the short version. I hear that all the time too, But surprisingly, like they are very good at it. They knew their story before anyone else had been hired to tell it. They have worked in enough other companies and they have done enough other sales jobs to know that some companies are really good and some are not. Some leaders are really good and some are not. And they innately recognized how they wanted to run a company. And then when they started it and started to build a team around themselves, they were actually really good at telling that story. It sold me, right? Like I was a customer before I worked here. And the way I heard about them was just word of mouth through Facebook and asking around and other people recommending them. So marketing wasn't sophisticated before I got here, but it was effective for the level of scale they had at the moment. There was a lot of door-to-door marketing. They had already created yard signs and door hangers for themselves. There were vehicle wraps in place. They're not the ones we use today. That was actually my first assignment on the job, was like, hey, go finish working with our wrap guy to design our kind of final vehicle wrap, working with Owens Corning and MGM to get that approved. But yeah, there was some basic stuff there. There was some organic social. There was a website that was actually pretty good for the time. It was a better than average roofing website that I think they'd paid someone to do and had done a good job. But that was about it. It just was very shallow, and it really just reached the people that they were directly in front of or adjacent to their past customers. But there was no wide reaching marketing or Metroplex wide, nothing that was going to really scale or be able to like generate the volume of business that they were hoping for when they hired me. Yeah.
So then let's talk a little bit strategic planning, because Brandon and Ryan, you got hired. Now, how much did ownership let go of essentially those pieces, or how hard, or were there any hard conversations that you'd had to have so that ownership could truly let go and trust the process, or trust that you're going to put the process in place?
So for me,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll jump. I'll just go real quick because mine's way shorter than yours. Yours is a whole story. But for me, hiring me for marketing, I've always looked back and thought that was a relief for them. There was a real willingness to hand that off. Like, I think they were like not excited about having to do the marketing operations day to day. And so for me, I kind of proposed to them. During my hiring process, it was basically me giving them a proposal of like, here's everything you're not doing. Here's the order I'm going to do it in. Here's what it's going to cost. And they were like, great, awesome, go. And so my early days of it were actually just trying to get time with them. Like, hey guys, I would go sit in the couch in their office, like, here's my list to go through today. And they're like, great, you got 10 minutes. Like it was much harder for me to get them to give me time to. And so a lot of it was me kind of going off on my own. They let go of my piece very, very quickly, which was definitely to the benefit of the company. They trusted me, and that has paid off of that. They gave me that leash, that trust, and that's the only reason I've been able to be successful, is because they let me have the time and the space that I needed to get everything built.
That makes sense if they didn't actually like marketing. So they're like,
Exactly.
thank God you're here.
Yeah.
You are.
But I
you're
can see a
savior.
world where like you don't like it, therefore you don't understand it, therefore you don't trust it, and so you're overbearing on the person doing your marketing and you're suspicious of them. And that was never ever the case. In fact, there's been times where I've, at my own fault, tried to justify myself for my role to them when we're having contentious conversations or something. And Jeremy's like always the one, he's like, man, like you have never had to justify yourself here. Like you may feel that way, but there's never been a moment. And he's right. They've always just kind of been, hey, go, let us know what you need. So from my perspective, every owner listening right now, I want you to hear this, like make sure you hire a marketing person you can trust. And that's its own difficult thing. But when you found them, let them go. Like just trust them and they'll pay it back.
Yeah,
Brandon?
to give Ryan's credit, man, like he's taken the ball and run with it, and he's just killing it, right? Like I mean, I don't even know how much revenue we've done just from marketing this year alone, but I know it's a lot, right? So he's doing a great job. From my end, it wasn't quite that easy, but here's what I will say about Jeremy and Matt, man. Every owner that I've ever worked for have let go of the most. So they are like Matt and Jeremy, and they'll even tell you they are two guys that are big on trust, right? Because every business owner has been burned at some point by somebody doing something, stealing money or doing stuff under the table, whatever it is, right? And so, but they're really big on trust. But once you earn the trust, you've got it, right? And so, I mean, they completely 100% trust us now and me to basically do I mean, I have the autonomy to do pretty much whatever I want to do with the company. And so they're now calling me like, hey, tell us about our company, like they're asking for updates now. And so it's really good, but it was a slow progression towards that, right? I think I had to come in, and I mean, they already had a high level of trust with me because I had known them beforehand and I had worked with them in the past as a consultant. So they kind of already knew me and how I work and all that kind of stuff. So there was already a base level of trust there. But, to be able to hand, as founders, it's really hard to be able to hand your baby to somebody else and say, okay, run with it, And so, I mean, they spent 7 years building this thing up. And so, there was some definite, and two, I feel like I don't know if they would say this, but I feel like I was really good and about asking for a lot of stuff too, that like I maybe didn't need to ask, but I just wanted to make sure they knew kind of what I was doing and what their opinion was and all that kind of stuff on this. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing X. So what do you think? And I already maybe knew the answer, but it was like, yeah, I just want to make sure that that I still want you involved in this, and I value your opinion 100% because you guys built this thing, right? And so to their credit, they've given away a lot, but it's been proven over time too. Like I've worked really hard to earn that trust and to do a good job, and I think trust just comes with success.
Success makes trust a lot easier. I'll tell you that.
That's right. That's right.
If
That's right.
they give you a little trust and you give them back 5x, that's generally a good way to get more trust.
Yeah,
Essentially,
that's right. Yeah.
So how is actual strategic planning going? Like how do you do that? Is it based on quarterly? Is it a yearly thing? Is it an offsite? What's that look like?
Yeah. So at every company that I've pretty much been with, we have always done leadership retreats. And so we'll go off for, 2, 3 days, whether it's a weekend or whatever it is. But, so when I first came on at TXD in 23, they'd never gone on a leadership retreat before. They'd never actually, gone away offsite and done planning for the year. And I think it was just kind of like, hey, we're going to wake up today and see how it can be better than yesterday, which is fine. But, for me, like my norm was to go off on a leadership retreat and do strategic planning for the year and figure out what big incentive or big initiatives we want to do, what goals we want to do. So every year we go on a 3-day leadership retreat offsite somewhere. I think this year, Ryan, we took like 20 guys,
There's a lot.
or 20 people to our leadership retreat for 3 days. And we cover everything. We do a SWOT analysis. For the past year, we cover kind of what our revenue goals are, what our big initiatives we need to cover, what were our big, issues last year, where do we want to go? We've got a 3, 5, 10-year plan already in place. So we're just kind of looking at, hey, what's the next step that we need to jump to? And what are the big initiatives this year that we need to cover to make sure that we get to that 3, 5-year goal? And, then we kind of do, we break it up, and everybody's got action items at the end of it. And we plan it out by quarter and what we're going to do, or by revenue and initiatives. We planned out to the nitty gritty of even to what every team needs to do per quarter, per month in revenue for us to meet our goals. And I mean, it gets pretty fine detailed as far as what we do there, but that's kind of where it happens at the leadership retreat. Then then the work actually starts. That's the easy part. The hard part is actually doing it, right? And so kind of what I do is I take our whole 3 days of leadership retreats and I sum it up in a document and send it out to everybody. And so make sure that everybody is well on the same page about what we heard and talked about and agreed to and all that kind of stuff. And all of our people go, right? Like it's all of our leadership, all of our executive team, Brian, all of our sales managers, team leads, that kind of stuff. Those guys go because I want them to be bought into what we're doing, and I want them to be able to have a voice to be able to speak into what we're going to be doing this year. And that's part of our buy-in process, right? So, then what we do is then we meet quarterly after that. So we meet quarterly every quarter and I take the document from our leadership retreat and we go, hey, what did we plan on doing this quarter? Right? Did we meet our goals? Did we not? Where did we miss? What do we need to adjust for next quarter? All that stuff.
And then the piece I would add to that is every single week, Brandon and I are meeting, and this is where marketing really, the rubber meets the road with sales and how you truly integrate with ops and sales is then I as a leader and Brandon as a leader meet, and we're looking at, I have these massive dashboards of every lead source we use in the company where we get any of our business, and it's broken down by every lead source, how many leads we've gotten, how many deals, and how much revenue and spend. And that's broken out by quarter and by year. And so I can look at quarter 1 from 24, 25, 26. I can see quarter 2 from those years. I can see end of year, so totals. And Brandon and I are sitting down every week and looking at these numbers and going, this lead source is performing, this one's not, this one is, this one's not. Fun fact, every single one of our lead sources in the company has had year-over-year growth in quarter 1 except 2 of them. So something like more than 20 of our lead sources have grown except 2 of them. So we're having a phenomenal quarter 1, which is awesome, but it allows Brandon and I to have opportunities to go, why is this working so well? How do we invest more in that? Or why isn't this one? And it's not always that we're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's like, oh, well, we just haven't had any storms. So referrals from previous customers are going to be down. Like that's normal. So, it's that not only you're planning once a year and meeting once a quarter, but Brandon and I are looking at numbers every single week, making sure that it's being tracked because not everybody can look at those numbers all the time,
Yeah.
but we can.
Yeah, and there's a lot of other meetings that go on every single week to make sure that all that stuff gets hit with leadership and sales leadership and all that kind of stuff. So there is no shortage of, um, pretty much every week, everybody knows where we're at, where we're going, and what we need to
Mhm.
do.
So part of being strategic is essentially taking a step back and looking at the business both in hindsight as well as towards the future. So what have you observed when it comes to needing to invest in technology?
Well, what I would say is like, for us, what we've realized is as we've grown, there becomes pain points, right? For the in the technology realm. Like, we're hiring so many people at a such high rate now. Like when I first got here, we didn't have an HR system, right? So there was literally no record of what reps worked here and what reps didn't work here, right? And there was no record. Like you
It
couldn't
was the
find it anywhere.
CRM. It was who had how
Yeah.
many deals
Yeah.
in the past,
Yeah, and if you didn't sell any, and if you didn't sell any roofs, you didn't exist at TXD. And so, so like nobody knew who you were. But so, implementing an HR software for us to be able to like have, all that stuff in one database to make sure we have all of our training material in there, as we've grown, all of our training material, all of our job descriptions for when we hire staff, or, all of our new hire paperwork, all of our, we now have processes and systems, through that HR software to be able to go, hey, here's how you onboard somebody. Here's the offer letter that you use template to modify. Here's how you find somebody's pay information and tax stuff. And, all that stuff is now in one place. And all of our company docs from even leadership retreats and policies and procedures and handbooks and all of that stuff is stored in one location now. And then you have like the other technology that most sales companies have. You have a CRM, you have, we have a door knocking app and stuff like that. But like, yeah, as we've grown, you start to see these pain points creep up and you're like, man, how do we organize all this junk? Like how do we make sure that we don't lose track or keep it all? Like we can't use file systems anymore. Like it's way too much stuff and paper. And so for us, man, we just kind of been like, I'm kind of the guy that's like, hey, I think we need to do something about this. Let me go research like every, HR software out there and have calls. Still got people calling me and I've already used this software for 3 years and people still keep calling me about, hey, I heard you wanted an HR software. I'm like, yeah, that was 3 years ago. We already got something.
Well, that sounds like a person maybe you should hire because they're very determined.
Yeah. So, I just think it's one of those when those pain points creep up and you just kind of go, hey, how do we deal with this?
Were there any conversations around AI yet?
We always have conversations about AI, especially Ryan and I. Ryan and I love the AI, and Ryan uses a lot of AI when it comes to marketing. So I don't know if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the guy that uses it the most in the company. That's probably predictable, but I'm using some AI tool on average, probably 2 to 3 hours a day at this point. I want to go ahead and timestamp this so that people don't judge me a year from now and say that it is
Bing.
March 2026 and I, like everyone else, am primarily using Claude right now. So I know it's the hot one to use, and I use ChatGPT and Claude for different things. Those are my primary two. I have a different AI app that I pay for that helps me with SEO, especially when it comes to researching and writing content. It just does a better job than both of those because it's built for that. I'm using Higgsfield a lot for like video stuff and doing cool AI video that makes the services more interesting for consumers. So I'm using like all the basic tools you would imagine. And really it's the only thing that makes it possible for me to work at scale for 3 different companies at one time. It's like I talk about this all the time with Jeremy. I'm like, can you believe that when I came on board at Texas Direct, ChatGPT was a year old and nobody knew what it was. And it just blows my mind that it's only 2 years, 3 years later, and now everyone knows what it is and everyone uses it to like build their grocery lists or whatever. Like, it's just wild how it's become so necessary so fast as this tool that I didn't know what it was when I started, and now I can't imagine not having it for all the stuff that I use AI for. It's just mind blowing.
Have you played with any building agents or anything? So an OpenClaw, and again, it could be any
Yes,
software.
it is.
But
It's very confusing for me. I'm a true I'm a very old millennial, and so it has been a learning curve for me to learn how to build agents. Most of my agents stuff has been unsuccessful. What I foresee, it's not that it's not useful. It's just that I think what people are primarily using agents for, it's stuff that I don't need. Like, I'm not doing a lot of web development stuff. I'm not using, when I'm doing deep research, I want it to be very collaborative with me. So I'm not at a point where I need AI to do the same deep research on the same sort of topic set on a repetitive basis over and over and over. Like for me, my use of AI is still very collaborative. It's almost more of a teammate for me. And so I'm learning the agent thing as I go. And this is just for full honesty for any other marketers or owners listening. You're going to watch Instagram reels and you're going to feel like everybody has this agent thing figured out. You're going to feel like everybody knows all these hacks that you could do with Claude. And it's true that I know about a lot of that stuff, but in the practical sense of like, how much time do I have to build this stuff out and implement it in the business? I'm so limited that my use of Claude and ChatGPT probably looks a lot like anyone else's that is worried about it being approachable, which is like when I don't know how to do something with Claude or ChatGPT, I ask it how to do what I want it to do. Like, hey, Claude, I want you to do this. How should I go about having you do it? And it's very good at telling me. And then oftentimes what I'll do is rather than going way deep down the rabbit hole, like AI influencers are doing, I stop where AI has produced the result for me that I wanted it to do. And I move on with the other 10 marketing things I need to get done that day, like editing a video or taking photos or ordering this thing to be reproduced or whatever. Like it's a very fluid thing where I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to use it at the same time. And I'm not doing either one perfectly, but I'm doing them well enough, you know?
That's a good experience here because I feel like there is a lot of misconception of like, oh, you just make an agent and then it does everything for you. And it's like, that's not in any way, shape, or form how it is.
Maybe for some people, but not for me.
Somebody that's sitting around doing it all day, sure. But it's like, if you would prefer me not to do my job, marketing, and if you'd prefer me to be more of an AI expert, then sure, I can spend, 40 hours a week doing that in comparison to like, I'm trying to produce content and I'm trying to produce posts and everything else that you're doing in the marketing side.
Yeah.
I would say one thing.
Go ahead, Brian. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say one thing from my end is like that we hadn't talked about really is like, something that's very new to me is, we have this technology stack now where, to work here, you have to get like 5 apps on your phone. You know what I mean? Like, because we have all these different types of things that we use. And, from my seat, what's been really interesting in having to learn how to do, because I am also a very old millennial. And probably 5 years ago, I would have told you I'm the most technologically challenged millennial out there. But, when it comes to like your full tech stack, being able to integrate all that together and, I'm sometimes a little cheap and I want to try to do it myself as opposed to letting other people do it. And so, I'm learning about like, how to integrate things with API keys and webhooks and all these different things and trying to get it done that way in myself. And so it's definitely been a learning curve on that end as far as like all the integration tools when it comes to that stuff. It's really just easier if somebody has, a native integration and I don't have to mess with all that, but that can always happen. So we have had to do some learning on, when it comes to webhooks and API integrations, stuff like that to all of our different systems.
The other thing I wanted to say on AI from a marketing perspective, so to all the business owners out there listening, it's going to be really tempting to look at AI as a tool to help you. Oh, it's going to help me solve problems in my business, or it's going to give me answers I didn't know, or creative ideas I didn't have. And that's true. But what's coming, I think, is so much bigger. And so this is where I'm trying to think right now. And I think all marketers are doing this if they're smart, is AI, while we are learning AI is learning us. And the most important thing it's learning as a business owner is it's learning who you are as a company, as employees, as owners, as a brand. And it's always watching. It's watching Reddit and it's reading reviews and it's looking at articles that you're mentioned in or podcasts you get to be a guest on and all that stuff. And so it's so easy to get wrapped up in the moment of like, I need to learn how to do this with AI or do this. And it's easy to forget that you need to be making sure you're turning the right levers so that 5 years from now, when your iPhone comes built in with its own AI assistant and you tell that AI assistant, hey, it just hailed on my house, what do I do? And your AI assistant says, oh, you need a roof inspection because your roof is likely damaged. Would you like me to schedule one? And you say, yes, I would like that. And it says, would you like me to choose the roofer? And you say, yes, please choose that too. That AI now can go find which brands are best speaking to it about who you are, what you do, why you serve homeowners. And then that AI will talk to our in-house AI, which knows everything about our company and our policies. It schedules all of our reps for inbound leads. That AI talks to ours. And the next thing you know, 10 o'clock the next morning, Jamie from Texas Direct is up on that guy's roof. And that's the first time two humans have ever communicated. And I think that's a very real future that we have ahead of us, where all the traditional SEO stuff is great. All the outbound marketing we're doing is great. But if we're missing that we should be training it right now for the future that's coming, then only a very select group of companies are going to get all of that future business when it hits, and that's part of strategic planning and thinking ahead.
Oh yeah.
Ryan just
That's
wanted that
great
on the
point.
record so he gets credit for it before it happens.
I do. Call me Nostradamus.
That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, big swings, big predictions. And then if, it doesn't happen, then nobody gets sent to this podcast anymore. And
if it doesn't happen, I'm stealing that from a mentor of mine who taught me SEO. So if he watches this podcast, this is where I'm not going to name drop you another Ron that I know, but he's a great dude. And that idea came from him the other day. So yeah,
just
it's
Ryan
a real
and a bunch
thing.
of Rons around there, I guess.
Yeah, find your Rons. That's right.
Yeah.
This has been a ton of fun, but we've about at time here. So we have a last question we like to ask all of our guests, and Will kick it off.
So look, if you were to go back 20 years, so we're in 2026, so back to 2006, what advice would you give yourself? What would you tell yourself, your former self, about the future?
Short the housing market.
That's
usually people say like buy Google, buy Bitcoin. You're like, no, short the housing market.
Probably listen to my wife more. Yeah, no.
Oh, you're definitely sending her this podcast.
Yeah, I think for me, like I don't know. I know this is a real thing, right? But it's real for me. But I don't know how many people talk about it or admit it, right? There are several times where I kind of get, a little bit imposter syndrome. And, for me, if I would go back 20 years, I would just tell myself to like, hey, trust your knowing when you do stuff, like trust that what you're talking about. Right. I think it's really easy to see what's on social media and listen to podcasts and think like that guy is the smartest guy in the world. And they're just you put them on this pedestal and there's no way you could reach that zenith point, right? Of that. They're just regular people too. And for me, it was when I was a business consultant. I mean, I was in my early 30s talking to CEOs who were 50. And that was the point where I realized like, they're not some crazy Superman, like amazing genius person, right? Like they're just a human being. And I actually do know what I'm talking about. Right. And so I think for me, it would be like, hey, just trust what you know, and do that.
That's amazing advice, especially because we get people all the time that will listen to the podcast and be like, "Ooh, I don't know if I'm good enough to be on the podcast." And like, we're just trying to find your stories of what your experience is. From the outside, we see that there's obviously growth and positivity, but people get in their own head. So
I think
that's a great one.
I think every leader at some point, we stand in front of our team and talk confidently. But I think every single leader sometimes goes to bed and they're like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. What am I doing here? And you kind of feel like I hope nobody figures out that I'm just winging this thing, and we're not winging it, right? We're planning it, but like, I think every leader does that at some point, and you kind of get to feel that way a little bit of like, man, I don't know what the heck I'm doing here. Like somebody smarter should be doing this or something,
That's like when you don't know anything, you know everything, and then you start learning more stuff, and you're like, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
Ryan, anything else other than shorting the housing market that you tell your 20-year-old?
I didn't have money to use to short the housing market anyway,
Okay.
so that's useless advice. And I think the biggest thing I've learned, there's a lot of things I would tell myself for sure, but sticking to the business theme, it's the story of my career has been one that the old saying is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I've learned in the last 20 years that it's both what you know and who knows you know it. And that's, I think, what I would tell my younger self is make sure you learn to master the things that you're passionate about. I've been doing photography. I started photography right after the 20-year ago mark. And so I wouldn't have even started that. That was one of my first creative things. And so learning to find things like photography that you're passionate about that will lead to your greater interests later, like photography becomes marketing later. That's important, but it's more important both who you know and that they know what you know. And I find that I'm always meeting new people who I tell them, oh, I do marketing, and they don't know what that means. And so finding those important moments in your career where you can have coffee or lunch with the right person and go, here's what marketing means. Here's what it would mean for your business. Here's what it means for this one. This is what I know how to do. And that becomes a bridge to so many interesting conversations and so many different ways to help people. So, hey, Ryan, 20 years ago, like, make sure you meet as many people as you can, build really strong relationships, serve and give first so that people know that you really care about them, and then make sure they know what you do and how you can help them. And that's how I got to this super fun place that I'm at in my career right now. And I guess I wouldn't need to tell myself that because I learned it, but I would want to do more of it. I would want to do that more early on, you know?
Awesome. No, I love that. What you know and who knows you know it. Yeah, I wrote that down. This has been great. I hope you had a ton of fun. If somebody wanted to get a hold of either of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, I guess for me, email, and because I'm always going a million different directions. So just Ryan, Ryan, at TXD, T as in Tom, X as in X-ray, D as in dog, roofing.
All right.
Yeah. So I'm Brandon at txdroofing.com.
Awesome. All right. Anything else you'd like to tell the people before we say our goodbyes?
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, this has been super fun. Thanks, Justin and Will.
Awesome. Listeners, I hope you had as good of a time as we did. This is a fun one. I don't know. I'm all giddy. So I got that energy, which is going to explode. But until next time, adios.
Adios.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
Scale.